Welcome back. Today's talk is titled, What is it that wants to be heard? I frequently take long breaks from social media. I think it's healthy for the psyche to step away from this constant field of comparison. But every so often, I'll get back on, see what friends are doing, check in, have a look around. And one of the unfortunate parts of social media is you can't just follow your friends. It kind of sucks what it's turned into. I miss the days when it just showed your friends what they were posting, what was going on in their lives. Now the algorithm wants to feed you suggested posts, advertisements, influencers it thinks you care about, or content it thinks you wants to see based off of what you lingered on a half a second too long. I used to follow a lot more spirituality type accounts, and when I got back on a few months ago, I saw a post from one of them saying that if you change your vibration, you change what you attract. This is a very familiar line. Hell, a bunch of famous people have made entire careers off of this one line. It's one of those spiritual platitudes that feels really empowering on the surface. It makes us feel like we have total control over our lives. So out of curiosity, I clicked into the comments. And the top one said, "What about the illness I have?" And the creator replied, "Nothing is irreversible." Ugh. Now, on the surface, that sounds really nice if you don't explore it too closely. But buried beneath that is a more poisonous and insidious implication. Because it also means that if you did not heal, if the disease stays or the body breaks down, then somehow you failed to align your energy correctly. Somehow this is your fault. And then I saw another comment below that from a man who said, "The loss of my son is not reversible." You could feel the pain in that sentence, and my heart broke for that man. And something inside me lit up. A part of me wanted to jump in like a mother bear and tear that whole teaching apart. To say, how dare you say this to hurting people? How dare you sell this polished little fantasy that if life does not improve, that it was because this suffering person just vibrated wrong. So I started typing this long, angry response. It was sharp, full of charge, maybe a bit self-righteous. And then right before I posted it, I stopped and I asked myself the question, what is it in me that wants to reply here? Because the reality was the man running the account wasn't going to change his mind. His whole platform was based on this framework. To admit otherwise would mean pulling apart the very foundation of what he teaches. And the people in the comments agreeing with him weren't going to change either. Many of them still lived in the same worldview that I once lived in too. That if you just align correctly, purify correctly, and believe correctly, then life will just align to reward you accordingly. The people beneath that weren't going to suddenly turn life into some sort of copy pasta where they stand up and they start clapping. "Yes, Jason, thank you. You have changed my opinion and my life." Is that a real thing? Has that actually ever happened before? So again, the question became, what is it in me that wants to be heard? And when I sat with that honestly, I realized a part of what was there was pain. I thought about all the times I had felt misled, all the times I was hurting and I was given a teaching that made me feel like the hurt was my fault. Like if I was suffering, it meant that I must have subconsciously sabotaged myself. If I was sick, then that meant some part of me wanted to stay sick. That if I was in pain, that must have meant that I manifested it, attracted it, or aligned to it in some way. But if I'm being fully honest, something else is mixed into it too. The desire to save, the need to correct, the charge of wanting to be the one that sees clearly, the old ache of wanting to say the right thing, the true thing, the thing that should have been said for me. And this is where it got interesting. Because once you start looking at comments through that lens, social media becomes this kind of theater. Every comment section is a chorus of people saying in one form or another, "Look at me, hear me, agree with me, see that I understand, see that I belong, see that I am right." Some comments are tribal. "Yes, exactly. This resonates with me. This is my worldview too." Some are corrective. "No, actually, that's not quite right." Some are combative. "This is nonsense. This is stupid." Some are pseudo-conscious. You're projecting." And then another person deliciously replies, "No, you're projecting." And suddenly, two egos are locked in a hall of mirrors, each accusing the other of ego while both being simultaneously run by it. It's like that Spider-Man meme where they're all pointing at each other. And in that moment, they are still doing what we do, which is being human. But it often seems that very few people stop and ask the deeper question: why do I feel so compelled to say something right now? Because often, if you really let yourself write the comment without posting it, you can feel the charge leave the body. You realize you did not actually need to post it, you needed to feel it. You needed to see what was moving through you. You needed to understand yourself a bit. And I think that's where the real lesson here lives, because the internet gives us endless opportunities to study our own interactions. Why do I need to correct this person? Why do I need to be seen as the one who understands? Why do I need to defend my interpretation to someone across the country? Or more accurately, why do I need to defend my interpretation to a person across the world who probably doesn't even speak the same language? And why does it feel unsafe to let this sit there unchallenged? A lot of times beneath the intelligence, the articulation, and the moral language, there's something much older at work. A wound, a need, a pattern. Maybe a part of us learned long ago that safety came through this idea that if we just explain ourselves well enough, we'll finally be understood, and if we're understood, then we'll be accepted. Hello, teacher wounds, my old friend. We meet again. And so we keep trying. We argue on Reddit. We spar in the YouTube comments. We defend ourselves on Instagram. We write long replies on Facebook to strangers about abstract principles, current events, and interpretations of reality as if our nervous system depends on being recognized as correct. And for a moment, it does feel that way. But it doesn't actually make us safer or make us feel more whole. And rarely it gives us the truth we're seeking in the first place. That is the invitation. Every activation is an invitation. When you feel the charge, when your fingers are already moving, when you can feel the righteousness, the urgency, the need to correct, to defend, to explain, to be seen, pause and just ask yourself, what is it in me that needs to be heard right now? What wants to be seen? What wants to be validated? What feels threatened right now? What feels ignored? What still aches? That question alone can teach you far more than any argument ever will. And the funny part is this video is no different. Some people will hear this and say, exactly, yes, this is true. Others will think, nope, he's oversimplifying it. He forgot this, or he's projecting. Or others will say he's doing the exact same thing he's criticizing. And then some of you will probably argue with each other in the comments about whether or not people should be looking at why they comment at all. Which is kind of hilarious, really, some comment section inception. Say that 5 times fast. A perfect little parody of the whole thing at play. And that's life. So this is not me saying to never comment, to never speak, never challenge, never engage. Sometimes things do need to be said. Sometimes truth does need a voice. Sometimes defending someone is right and necessary. But even then, the deeper question still matters. Who inside you is speaking? Is it clarity, compassion, woundedness? Or is it the old need to be seen, to be right, to be understood? Is it the child that learned being understood meant being safe? Because the comment section matters far less than the consciousness it came from. So before you hit send, maybe just wait a moment. Not to silence yourself, but to listen, to pause, to notice, to ask with real self-honesty and reflection, what is it in me that wants to be heard? Because that is where the real conversation actually begins. So with that said, be kind to yourself, and I'll talk to you again soon.